One of these days I'm going to cut you into little pieces. It was lunchtime during my German class. Mine gets a different perspective when you're learning German by being a Spanish speaker. Mine doesn't get tired, it just changes, adapts, evolves to the new reality. And this process may make you feel hungry. So I went to buy something to eat. I have this addiction to chips of all kinds. So naturally I bought these rancheritos chips, really tastefully, especially delectable with the accompaniment of a cold Coca-Cola. After the very difficult exit of Syd Barrett from Pink Floyd in 1968, who until that time was the principal songwriter and composer, Roger Waters, Richard Wright, and the new member, the now guitar and voice legend David Gilmour, had to take charge of the creative way of the band by bringing each one their voice and sound, which at first started to be less consistent than Barrett's one, or at least that was thought at the time. And I rise like a bird in the haze when the first rays touched the sky. I had an hour for lunch, and this really complex Rancheritos Coca-Cola process just took 10 minutes to be concluded. What could I do with 50 extra minutes, a new perspective of everything, and not a single classmate who I can call friend, or just anyone to spend some time with? Of course, as always, isolate my hearing sense and adventure in what the world could offer me in few blocks around the German school. By this time, I was in process of getting deeper with Pink Floyd, so this would be my really first hearing of Meddle. Previously to the release of Meddle, Pink Floyd had already 3 albums without the contributions from Barrett. The soundtrack, music from Film More, the extremely psychedelic work Ummagumma, and the always controversial Atom Heart Mother, which the band itself called absolute garbage. I couldn't disagree more, but the important thing about this absolute garbage album was the creation of the Atom Heart Mother suite that gave the band a preceding for the creation of a long-duration, extremely complex song. Go down in your own way, and every day it's the right day. And as you rise above the fear lines in his brow, you look down, hear the sound of the faces in the crowd. The first track started with a weird kind of storm and this really deep and powerful bass. Immediately continued with this so appropriate guitar. I'm apparently getting high with every past second. This immersive experience is just so absolutely much for a human life. I just know I'm not worthy for this privilege, but yet enjoying it. Who the fuck knows how I get into a previously unknown park? I just find myself sitting on a bench, when I see this dog rummaging in a garbage pile. Then he takes out a really peculiar thing. When I look a little more in detail, I find out that it's a sort of a hoof, probably a deer's hoof. What the fuck was doing a mutilated deer hoof in the garbage of a highly urban park? And so it was 1971. The band started to work in Meddle, an album that was inflection point for their future works and sound. Here, the band abandoned completely the psychedelic rock from their first albums, and started to experiment in the massive wave that was becoming progressive rock. And you're leading me bound to the place by the sea, I hear your soft voice calling to me, making a date for later by phone, and if you're alone, I'll come home. It matters now, but at the time it really didn't matter. I had a pillow of winds to get relaxed, to see the seasons change. I stopped to feel the ground under my feet. My ass wasn't anymore on that bench. In a parallel reality, I was that dog, and it was my mutilated leg which I was carrying. Pink Floyd started the recording of Meddle in the legendary Abbey Road studios, but soon they started to have some technical problems for the recording of the album. The studio had only an 8-track recorder, which the band found insufficient for satisfying the technical demands of the project. So they moved to some smaller recording studios in London, which had the capacity of 16-track recorders. I was in the kitchen. Seamus, that's the dog, was outside. Well, the sound skinned slowly, but my old hound just sat right down and cried. Floating in the air, with mixed realities, I got fearless of nothing. And so the homeless people who were smelling thinner on the park center did. Who was I just to even notice their presence? They knew something I didn't, something I just wasn't prepared to understand, but so I did to feel. They picked the place and I chose the time. The band was really busy recording the album and at the same time practicing together and touring in Europe, Australia and the United States. So they had to divide their time in all these activities, which made finally longer the recording and releasing of the album. An echo of a distant time comes willowing across the sand. Das ist wunderbar, das ist wunderbar, leider nicht ewig. Bitte, lass mich für immer fliegen, lass mich den Himmel küssen, lass dich mich begleiten, dich werde ich für immer lieben. The first tries for the band to get material were completely a failure. They used some methods, like that every band member working a different track without having a clue or a reference of what the other members were doing. Absolutely nothing came out from here. The band worked in the album from the afternoons to very late hours in the night. They were completely isolated. The only discography contact they had was when their manager appeared with some bottles of wine and some spliffs. And no one called us to the land, and no one knows the words or whys. Overhead the albatross hangs motionless upon the air. Now he's me, and I ain't Phil. There isn't any more such thing as time, just never-ending becoming waves of truly perfection. You can see them, but never to touch them. The dog is not an animal or a thing anymore, but a concept, an idea that lays in a memory which never will forget. And so it saw the light Meddle in the 30th October 1971. The specialized criticisms of the album were very mixed. Some call it an amazing piece of work, and some others call it just average work. But the impact that has had all this time with the fans has been huge, considering the monsters who are the later albums. This album has iconic tracks for the band's history, that still nowadays are played really frequently by Roger Waters and David Gilmour in their solo tours. Songs like One of These Days and Echoes have been included in the band's best songs compilations. Strangers passing in the street, by chance two separate glances meet. I start to feel really bad, uncomfortable, everything changes. I need someone to save me. I wanna wake up, but I just can't. Something more powerful than gravity holds me. I'll never be able to return in a nature state. I can't remember how it used to be anymore. And so we start One of These Days, a really powerful, almost purely instrumental song, where the highlights are the deep bass riff from Roger Waters, David Gilmour lap steel solo, and that scary Nick Mason's line at the beginning. And I am you, and what I see is me. Then, followed by two great relaxed songs of psychedelic folk, A Pillow of Winds and Fearless. This last one has a piece of Liverpool's football club frequently used song You'll Never Walk Alone. At this point, the album introduces you to a weird part with Xanthropes and Seamus. Of course they have something special, but they are uncommon of what Pink Floyd did in their history. This last one, Seamus, is a brilliant piece of blues but commonly picked as one of Pink Floyd's worst songs ever. And slowly, the feeling of wellness comes back and gives my breathing back, only for getting in a state of fully euphoria. This is getting better than never before. I felt perfection just few ago, and now this is just ineffable, and then just feels like an implosion in really slow motion. I don't longer belong to this world or to this reality. I don't longer belong to nothing. So I throw the windows wide and call you across the sky. And finally, it comes the complete side B of the album, the complete masterpiece and almost 24 minutes duration song Echoes. This is considered as the most ambitious song ever created by Pink Floyd. This is a really complex piece of art which includes really long instrumental passages, improvisations, deep lyrics, and really epic parts that take the listener to other dimensions and realities. Absolutely no one will be the same as it used to be after the listening of this song. Then, in just a flicker, I'm back. The park is materialized again. The sun shines brighter than ever. The bench under my ass never felt so good. I look at the watch. Ich muss bald zum Unterricht zurückkehren.